started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jeez.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm going to have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy spring forward to you. Hope that the hour adjustment wasn't that bad. I know it can be tough for some, but for others, it's not so bad. I think you get used to it. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. You can also watch us live, facebook.com, the hockey podcast, youtube.com, the hockey podcast, where I feel like we're a little bit of a stuckness. We're still at the William Karlsson of subscribers. So we would love to get that bumped up a little bit there. So we would love that. Of course, and you can subscribe to the audio of the podcast after the podcast is up. We are already, I got to tell you, this is probably going to be a very fiery episode. John is already arguing with us as soon as he got on. He, specifically with the host of this podcast, like anything I'm saying is like, good morning, Sean. I disagree. It's not morning. It's afternoon. Okay.
It's still morning for me. It's the spring forward. That's messing with me. I lost an hour of sleep, Kev.
Okay, that's fair. Do you have a coffee or stuff?
I've had my coffee. Yes.
Good. Okay, Devin, what's going on over there?
Not much. Yeah, I had a great sleep. Thank you for asking. Spring forward did not affect me that much. So yeah, things are good on my end. Good.
Well, you seem a little, you came on a little bit more chill, relaxed. You know, you weren't arguing with anybody.
Sean just needs a little bit more Enya in his life. A little zen.
I have a segment on my show called Give Me Zen Now.
Nice plug.
Tyler, how's your hair?
Well, it's holding for now, but it's got a life of its own sometimes. Bright and sunny out here today, although we were teased 5-6 days ago with spring-like weather and no snow on the ground, and winter has returned. Hopefully not for very long, though.
We've got clouds here, which is, very Vancouver of us. So.
But it is bright and sunny out this morning, and great to be with you three as usual.
Yes. Are we starting Flames or Canucks? Did we discuss this?
I think we wanted to start Flames. Obviously with Uncle Darryl back.
Yes,
we want to get into that.
Rolling down the tractor is Darryl Sutter to 2.0 and Darryl Sutter 2.0. Taking notes, doing his budget while at a press conference. I thought was nice. I guess
he was probably making notes on all the new reporters he had to acquaint himself with after whatever length of time that he
Francis,
was away.
Eric, Salvan, Haley, Steinberg, Pat.
No, he's still there. He was there back in those days.
That's true. So was Eric Francis.
Just a quick side note. I got to listen to some 960 on Thursday, and they had Andrew Walker doing his was it the sarcastic player profiles or whatever, and he was doing Darryl Sutter, and he was just talking about how everything that's changed, and then he mentions like Pat Steinberg's hosting the afternoon show. Oh wait, that hasn't changed. I guess not everything changes. So.
Yeah, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I guess that's really what to expect from a Darryl Sutter team. It wasn't any different than we knew what to get with Darryl Sutter. I mean, we had the 3-minute bag skate. Even today during practice, they did the 5-man line rush. What are we thinking? Are Devin, I'll start with you. Are the Flames turning a corner, or do we need to see more? Do we need to wait?
The answer is yes to both those questions. We need to wait to see what consistency they have within the next couple of weeks, if they're able to sustain what has happened in the past 2 games. But I don't think it was a question of Darryl Sutter and whether. There was a question of Darryl Sutter whether or not he would be able to relate to these young new kids, but. We like you said, Kev, we knew what Darryl Sutter was, but I think it was just the buy-in aspect of it, and whether or not the top line would be able to buy into his system. And last night, they definitely showed it. A couple of things that I've noticed is that they changed their approach to entering the offensive zone instead of trying to skate it in. You see multiple times Johnny Gaudreau dumping it in and Sean Monahan going in on the forecheck, and it actually resulted in a goal. You notice that they are more defensively sound, and it just seems like they are not spending as much time in the defensive zone, in resulting of what Darryl Sutter has put forward into the system. And once again, it's about the buy-in of those players, and they're showing it. And it's a massive 180 from where the team was last week with Jeff Ward than it is now with the Darryl Sutter. And you just gotta see the consistency going forward. But God, it feels good to be a Flames fan right now.
Tyler,
Sean? I think those bag skates and those hard skates, Darryl's just seeing who he's got and what he's got to work with. He's seeing who's going to stick with it and make sure that they're still giving it 110% doing those hard skates at the end of the practice, and seeing who's letting off the gas and seeing who he has to push more. I think that's one thing that in terms of those skates that's going on. And they've been playing very structured hockey the last 2 games. And there's still some players that need to start producing under Darryl Sutter. And it's only 2 games, but Johnny Gaudreau doesn't have a point. So there's, as Devin said, you still need to wait and see what happens going forwards. It's only 2 games, so you can't really say that come up with any true like ideas on what's actually happened, but for the most part, I think Flames fans should be happy with how this team has reacted to this change.
Yeah, no question. Bag skates are about asserting himself and establishing a tone with the team early on in his coaching tenure. So, probably not that surprising that he'd do that. It's a great point, Sean, that you made. I mean, seeing what he's got, I think, is maybe a part of it that I wasn't appreciating as much. It's still, I have to say, it's still going to take me some getting used to seeing him back there behind the bench after all these years. And somebody on Twitter made the joke about how ESPN got the hockey rights back, and the last time they aired a game, Darryl Sutter was coaching in Game 7. So some people might be like, "Hey, he's still there." So yeah, but I am interested to see, long term how this works out for the Flames. If people know me, they know that I'm not the biggest fan of cycling through coaches you previously fired, but this one does feel like the right fit at the right time for the Flames.
I think one of the things that I'm appreciating with Darryl Sutter as well is I'll find the clip here, but he's been a much better at defending his players. Like, for example, I mean, during the budget press conference, he was asked about why the Ryan line was playing. And he did say it was about another line not playing. But then Eric Francis, our friend Eric Francis, went after Darryl Sutter about Sean Monahan. And basically Darryl defended him. And I think, that to me, the way he's defended his team I know that a lot of people have been all over this player group and this core group for a really long time. Maybe the way that I'm looking at this now, I think the players may have none of this absolves the players necessarily of what has happened before, but I think Darryl's given him a clean slate. And in a sense, he's, as much as he's gruff and scowly and all of those things, he's defended his players. And I think that is going a long way. I don't think Jeff Ward ever truly stood behind. I think that there was a perception, and maybe I'm wrong, Jeff Ward never came across to me as a guy able to defend his players in the media, where Sutter has some media savvy. There's that word again.
Yeah, well, I think if you're one of the players, maybe you felt like the coach didn't have your back in public. Certainly, I think that there's some validity to that, Kevin.
Yeah, you got to have that. Got to have that balance between handling the media and making sure that it bleeds through when you actually talk to them, not being a bit two-sided like Bob Hartley was, being a hard coach and everything was so light in the media. And then going back to what I've heard is that inside the room he's a bit of a dick. So I appreciate that about Darryl Sutter, is that he is willing to back his guys. Another person that comes to mind in the hockey world is Berkey, Brian Burke. He's good at defending his players too, even potentially when they don't need to be defended. But I feel like Darryl, he's a bit more even keel, and if there needs to be criticism, I'm sure he would own up to the fact that certain player would. He would criticize them, but obviously, it goes back to the whole, okay, you have two positives and one negative about it, right? Making sure that things stay positive, I think, is a great way to go, and it makes it a lot easier for a player to play for a coach when they know that they have his back.
Yeah, he's got a bit of. Yeah, Darryl's got because cut from the same cloth as someone like John Tortorella. He's not necessarily as crazy and gruff as as Torts, and that's kind of even though Darryl is that way, he's just not at that level of Torts. But he will defend his players, but he will not sugarcoat bad performances. Mm-hmm. So I think that's fair, and I think you need to have that with a coach. If you feel like there's mixed messages coming from your coach, then there's definitely issues, and you're not going to know what to do.
We kind of joked at the beginning here. Pat Steinberg was still on the afternoon show. Eric Francis is still doing the reporting. Wes Gilbertson was around. Darren Haynes around? No, I think Darren Haynes came in a little bit later. But I wonder if that is actually an advantage, that he's very familiar with some of the people that he has spoken with before, and there's that relationship already there. I wonder if that's already sort of an ingrained advantage in a sense, that he knows how to talk to these. He knows how to talk to a Steinberg or a Francis or a Gilbertson, Labardius.
Well, it should in theory, but I mean, doesn't Darryl do things his way anyways? It's a little unconventional with his press conferences, to put it mildly.
I mean, just to clarify, Wes wasn't around when Darryl was. He was still going to school.
Oh, sorry that I aged Wes Gilbertson.
He was actually my assistant coach back in Cochrane before he started going to school for broadcast or for whatever he was doing.
he was coaching Devin and throwing Sean in the box. That's what he was doing because he was reffing as well.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that's a little bit of that there, Kev, in terms of familiarity. But I think a lot of it is just he's been around. He's seen a lot of these. There's only so many styles of questions and styles of communication that there is. He's been around for so long. I think he gets it, and he knows how to present himself true to himself, and then not really care what the rest of not really care too much about what they think. So I think and people know that about him. So when you're a known commodity, it's easier to come into a new place and set the tone.
Yeah. I'm just going to play a little bit of this for you here, just as an example, because he was asked yesterday about Sean Monahan. I'll play this for you here. And there we go. I'll full screen that here. Ron McLean had it.
Oh,
Yeah.
With one guy, quite honest, I don't think that this by now we should all know here. That's not like it's a star-powered, star-laden lineup in terms of the way it matches up in this division. But I think that everybody competes and plays the same way, plays together. That I think we're pretty well-rounded centerman.
Yeah, that was. Oh, I'll cut that off. Yeah, because he kept going. He really wanted Darryl Sutter to criticize Sean Monahan after Sean Monahan scored 2 goals, and had a pretty good night. So
Well, I think Sean not giving Johnny Gaudreau too much credit there in his first little talking point, saying that he hasn't produced. Well, yeah, he hasn't produced, but he's been doing the little things right. He's taking hits and to make plays, which he never would see before. And he's buying in. I thought he had a fantastic game last night. Yes, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't the Johnny Gaudreau that we normally see dancing around. But he's bought in. And once again, it's about the consistency of seeing whether or not this can continue going forward. But within the first 2 games, I've absolutely loved Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan for that matter. I thought that he has had a lot of poise. So I don't know if Eric Francis is doing Eric Francis things and Sean Holmesmith is doing Sean Holmesmith things.
Well, if you look at the stats, that line has been in terms of the expected goals for and against numbers, they are the worst on the team in those 2 games. So they may be doing the little things, but they're getting the results, and that line needs to produce for them to be effective. So if you're a Flames fan, you're hoping that the little things that Devin's saying that they're doing is carries into and starts creating results and goals going forwards.
Well, the expected goals, sure, that's just a stat, but the reality is that Sean Monahan got 2 goals last night, and yeah, one was kind of a greasy power play goal where it was a bit of a scramble in front of the net, but he got a stick on it, and then his other goal, I thought he did pretty well. So you can only look so much at the stats, but it's definitely good to correlate both what you see with the eye and what's going on paper.
I wasn't so much concerned about Johnny. I actually a little bit, if I had a concern about the forwards, I don't know if I've been super enamored with the Lindholm, Tkachuk, Dubé line. I don't think Darryl is super enamored on that either. I still think Chucky can give a little bit more.
Chucky can give a little bit more. I saw a little bit more pep in his step. Within the past, especially last night, I thought that he played okay. I mean, once again, he wasn't outstanding, but you can kind of see, especially with that open shift, that he was engaged. He went in for a big hit, and he was able to make a bit of a difference. But yeah, I'd say that out of that line, Tkachuk and Lindholm need to step it up, because I thought Dylan Dubé, he was flying out there. You noticed when he had the puck, and he was. God, that guy's a lot of skill, and I think that his ceiling is, we don't even know what his ceiling is. So I think as a whole, though, that line needs to start doing a little bit more, especially on the Lindholm front. I feel like we haven't really seen him at his best this year. If anything, it's been kind of going downhill. So really hope that Darryl Sutter can kind of push the right buttons with both those players, and hopefully Dubé can drag him into the fight a little bit more too.
And I'll just I've got those expected goals numbers up there. They're pretty high for that line, but they are, again, what's interesting about this these 2 games, it's been the grinders. It's been the bottom 6 that's for the most part that's gotten it done for this team. So like I said, I think it's too early to really say what exactly the Flames are under Darryl Sutter just yet. But the work rate is there, and I think Darryl pushing the Tkachuk and Lindholm line to be better, even if they are controlling most of the play, I think is great, because that is a line that could dominate if they get going.
Yeah. Derek Ryan is fit. Backlund has done well. The power play also is another thing here. I guess my question on the second unit is, we've talked about Les Giordano. Who would be a better option than Giordano?
Well, Anderson was, but he hasn't been playing well. He had
and he's on the first unit right now, and they moved him to the left side of the point.
Are you talking about Anderson? He's not on the first unit?
He's on the first. It's Monahan, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk on the first line. Lindholm is the fourth forward, and then Anderson seems to be handling the left side of the point.
Yeah. Sorry, I was confused on what you were getting at there, but yeah.
But the second unit has Dubé, Backlund, Mangiapane, Lucic, and Giordano. I think there's at least two changes you can make there.
Well, Anderson, he just hasn't been popping like he was at the beginning of the year. He had that miscue to Byron in the first period or second period, where he tried to bump back and it got instant giveaway. And Byron was pretty much in alone, but he had a good scoring chance there. So I just feel like I think he's probably trying a little bit too much, and he just needs to simplify his game. And I think, if anything, Darryl can sit him down and figure that out with him. Gio, he's been looking better. And that just might be because the past two games, he's actually looked pretty decent under Darryl Sutter. So my biggest thing with Gio is that once he gets the puck, he shoots it towards the net, no matter who's in front, what's happening, or anything like that. But he seems a little bit more poised on the point there these past couple of games. So I would like to see Valimaki potentially on that power play, not on the first power play, but on the second, to get his feet wet, to see what you really have there in that youngster. Because I feel like with that big body, he has a good shot, and he was doing that over in Finland as well. So I would like to see that, but it seems like if Anderson's not going, Gio will step on halfway through that first unit, and like 30 seconds or so if they're not able to keep that in the offensive zone. But other than those two, it's really hard to tell who else you can really put on there.
I threw an idea. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I think the only two options you have out there are Valimaki and Hanifin. They've got the offensive. They both have offensive upside that I don't think the Flames have really tapped into, and I think that they're younger and they need reps. So if you're going to take Gio off that second unit, I think one of those two needs to go on.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Anything else in terms of the Flames that we need to talk about? They have a pretty big week. 2 against the Oilers Monday and Wednesday, and then back-to-back Friday, Saturday in Toronto. I'm not saying the Flames are catching Toronto. That's, I don't think, a realistic thing, but I would think that I think they can work in, and they at least need to find a way to make sure that they don't allow McDavid to score 4 or 5 points, which he's done in the last 2 games against them. So, and they need to win. They need to start winning against the Oilers as well, because they've only won once so far against the Oilers. The Oilers have taken 3 of 4, I want to say. So I think this week is pretty important. And also, I think it's also in Toronto. I'm just going to put this out there. This is the first game with Darryl Sutter back, and I think that will be very interesting to see what, after the whole players-only meeting and everything that happened, and sort of the report that Tkachuk doesn't need to make things a riot. That'll be a very interesting game.
I think, that'll be a one to watch for sure. I think that Darryl Sutter would just tell Tkachuk, do what you need to do. And that's what I'm hoping for, at least. And I think that the old school mentality that Darryl has, he'll let the reins off of Tkachuk or try and get him back to where he was before that player's only needing. And I mean, part of me hopes as well that Muzzin has his bubble off, because he got a stick up high and he's been wearing a quote unquote cage ever since then. So I'd really want to see them throw down and potentially sort this thing out a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, as far as this week goes, you have the Oilers rolling, especially with playing against Ottawa. McDavid and Draisaitl have been phenomenal. So that'll be a good first test to see if this Darryl Sutter strategy of being more defensively sound will be very beneficial. And one thing I would like to talk about as well is that with this new system that Darryl has implemented, having Markstrom back there, not making as many massive saves and not, you know, putting as much strain on himself mentally and physically, I think is going to be very, very beneficial going for a playoff run or getting into the playoffs as of right now.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Flames Leafs game. I think it's going to be an old school hockey game. I think you're right there, Kevin Dev, here, where I think Tkachuk's going to be let off the leash a little bit, and he's going to cause absolute havoc, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the others games will be interesting too. Very interesting with you know, what's been going on at both ends. We'll get to McDraisatl a little bit later on, but we'll move on to the Canucks. And we have a question from Tyler Clark. A good place to start. Thoughts on Pearson's subpar play and what they do with him moving forward? And what's the center depth lines looking like when PD returns?
Well, Pearson's he's not been the consistent player that he has been since coming to Vancouver via Pittsburgh. But I think they just I don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to be able. I don't think they're going to be able to afford him after this year. Especially with Demko needing a new contract, PD Hughes both need new contracts, so it's going to be tough to see what they if they can keep him. If they can't, I think they need to find a way to move him at the deadline and get some assets back for him. But he's such a nice fit with Horvat when he's on that it's going to be tough. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and find a way to keep him long term going forwards, even though there's a good chance he gets knocked down to the third line going into next year with Höglander a year older and Podkolzin coming in. So it's going to be something to watch for sure. And then with the center depth lines, I really hope they keep JT Miller at center. I really want them to try and figure out to build some depth into this lineup and not have a black hole for offense in the bottom six. So I'm really hoping they find a way to keep JT Miller at center once Pettersson's back.
Yeah, I'm with Sean on all of those points, particularly JT Miller playing at center. He just seems way more engaged in the game on the whole as a center, and he's always been pretty good on faceoffs. The question is winger depth. For that plan to work, Jake Virtanen, Adam Gaudette, Brandon Sutter, those guys have to, they have to perform. They can't be. You can't have a situation where you're already watering down what were two decent lines into three not as decent lines. So that's my concern. As for Pearson, Jim Benning's been pretty clear in his last press conference there a couple of weeks ago that they were going to talk with Pearson, and I think they have actually had talks about trying to re-sign him. They do seem to really like him. His Stanley Cup winning experience, I think, is something that they value. But it's, like many of their forwards this year, it's been underwhelming watching him play. So hopefully that turns around. And, if they do re-sign him for, say, 3 or 4 years, is there going to be a huge drop-off in his play? That would be my concern.
Yeah, that's a concern for me as well. The last 5 games, he's been that line, the Horvat, Virtanen, and Pearson line's been pretty decent. So the last little bit's been a little bit better for him. But overall, this season he hasn't produced the way you want him to, especially with him being in the top 6. So it's time for. I think they need to look at different ways to fill out this roster going forwards.
Yeah, I think the other thing too that I don't think has been talked about enough, but they clearly missed Tyler Mott. I think Mott would be. I don't know if Tyler Mott was in the lineup, I would be open to the conversation of playing him with Horvat. I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I understand that a lot of people see him as a third line winger, and I think that that's fair. But I wouldn't mind trying that Horvat Tyler Mott going forward. I think I would like to see a line. I could see a line of Miller, Mott, and Gaudette going forward too in the next when Mott gets back, and it's at least a couple weeks away according to what I understand. I think of that, and we've talked a little bit about we've talked a lot about Jake Virtanen. We've talked a lot about Antoine Roussel, but I don't know. Zach McEwen hasn't been consistent. I think they need a little bit more there.
Well, they need to give him a chance to play. He hasn't played. He's played 1 out of the last 5 games. So it's hard to be consistent when you're not consistently in the lineup. So I think you need. If he gets a chance, I think he'll be able to prove that. I'd rather have Zach McEwen and Jace Howard in over Antoine Roussel. So
agreed on both ends.
Yeah. And you're right, Kev. I think the one thing is when you're talking about putting the wingers with the certain centers, when you're trying to build that center depth, if you do go Miller, Horvat, and Petey down the middle, you're going to have some quote unquote third liners and all that on the wings with all 3 of those centers. So if you have Mott with Miller and Gaudette as say a line, you're gonna keep Petey with Besser, and B, right now I don't think you're splitting up that Pearson, Horvat, Virtanen line.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to figure out who fits best with who. And I think Mott and Miller together, and you throw in Adam Gaudette, that is a buzzsaw line that could really find a way to be effective and put up points for the Canucks.
Well, if you take a look at Brett Ritchie on the top line going back to Calgary, you have that option there too, right? As long as you have, I call this the Mike Babcock kind of mentality of you have 2 really skilled players on one line, and then you have a puck getter, someone has a lot of tenacity and willing to go get the puck in the corners and retrieve it for your other skilled players on that line. So I totally agree with Sean there.
Yeah,
it's the Alex Burrows position.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think Höglander, Petey, and Besser would be a great line too. And it solves one of Sean's problems that Höglander would be on the proper side of his handedness, and that would make Devin happy as well. But honestly, that would just I think Höglander would be Höglander, Petey, and Besser would be a really strong line.
I think that would be a really strong line. I wouldn't mind seeing Höglander on that Mott and Miller line too. Give him a little more responsibility being more of a puck carrier on that line as well. Yeah. So I think there's options out there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do we want to talk about the goal of the year?
Oh,
the goal of the year. I'm
greasiest goal ever.
I'm very curious from Tyler's perspective, how this, as a referee, how he saw this actually.
Well, I did. Brendan Batchelor, he's on Twitter last night about going on about this too, crediting referee Chris Schlenker for being in perfect position. We talk in the referee clinics about the 3 basic end zone positions for referees. There's home base, which is kind of around where the goal line intersects the boards. Then there's the half piston, which is the bottom of the circle, and then at the net. And you want to know about at the net? I mean, this is at the net. Okay, and he can see the puck. The only thing I wonder about is he only looking for the puck to go across the goal line, or does he actually see the puck? I I mean, the replays show they got this right. And you could hear at the time somebody from the Canucks arguing for a penalty shot. I don't know if you guys heard that or not.
Well, you can sort of see it there. It's someone had his paw on it was Archo. I think it looks like it's number 15. Grabbed he tried to pull it under. So
So I mean, moot point because the puck did eventually get across the goal line here. But I mean, it's pretty hard for the Oilers to argue that when you got the referee in proper position. And it's refreshing to see that for a change because so often the referees in the end zone in the NHL are not in good position and miss things. Like when was it? I can't remember which game it was. It was one of the games against the Leafs, I believe, where Höglander had the quick shot off the back bar. And it came out. And, the referee was too far from the net, didn't see it. Was a little out of position for that one. Yeah, that was quite something. I can't think of a Canucks goal that's been any uglier than that one. I was just like, what was that?
I think every Canucks fan just was like, what? And just started laughing. And just like, because that's what I did. I was just started laughing, going, what the hell happened there?
Yeah.
Like, I was totally expecting to hear like the whistle blow and everything happen, but and it's just like, oh well, the puck was covered, no whistle, no whistle, no whistle, no whistle, no whistle. Oh, holy crap!
Then all of a sudden he's just well, and that was the thing. I didn't see the puck go across the line. All of a sudden the ref is signaling goal. It's like it's in. Where?
And for those who like the only other thing you could really maybe quibble about would be goaltender interference. Koskinen was way out of position there. He wasn't even part of that puck battle to try and keep it out. He was somehow slid out to the far post. So I don't think there was much you could. There was no way they could have challenged that and won it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just show that again. To me, I was listening to Oilers radio last night, and they said that this was the right call as well. So I didn't see there was some frustration from Oilers fans, but I think ultimately this came across as the right call. This is one of those things though that I do think where the I mean, not that it was challengeable. I think it was wise that Tippett didn't challenge, but this is one of those where you're watching that would be nice that the NHL kind of tweets something, some sort of explanation of what's going on. We've talked about that before. But I think it was absolutely, I don't think that this was the problem. Yeah, I thought it was the right call. I mean, no matter what team we're cheering for, I just look at this from an overarching point of view. It's hard to say that this was a wrong call.
No, that was the completely right call from a complete bias from both sides here. So that honestly, I didn't even see that until just now. So it look absolutely amazing. I can't imagine watching that live, but I think that overall they did a good job there. Especially you could have the NHL tweet out say that they back their refs, but then that's just, I don't know, it's just kind of redundant in that way too, because you trust the refs within making the right calls.
Actually, kudos last night to all officiating. They caught the Johnny Gaudreau was a clear kick in. They caught that. The Brendan Gallagher goal late in the Flames Habs game, that was a kick too.
Yep.
I'm not sure if Devin's really happy with Sheldon Keefe. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
there was one blunder though from the linesman in the Winnipeg-Toronto game right off the beginning there, negating a hand pass that was clearly a hand pass right in front of him, and then that leads to a goal, and then they had to overturn it. And what was the phrase? I'm trying to find it here. It was a missed game stoppage event. Is that what they're calling it now? Like they actually explained it on the microphone, and I've been scrolling through Twitter here trying to find that because it was just freaking hilarious. But I'm not seeing it now. A missed game stoppage event or something. But it's part of the challenge rules that came in, I think, prior to last season, where things like a hand pass or high stick missed prior to a goal can be challenged, and that's what was challenged, and the goal was taken off the board.
This happened back in 2019, according to a tweet from Michael Russo from the Minnesota Wild. In an email, I'll just share the screen here, just to show that this is from 2019. It might have been a similar thing that happened last night. In an email, the NHL has admitted his error, acknowledging a missed game stoppage event occurred. Minnesota's challenge should have resulted in New Jersey's first goal being disallowed. So I wonder if that is something sort of similar to that. But
yes, game stoppage event. There you go.
I think the other thing I wanted to get into is, of course, and Elliot Friedman did bring this up. There's been a lot of talk about PD and Hughes and what has to be done there. Obviously, you're going to sign him. But, boy, Thatcher Demko is not going to make this easy. I would argue he's been the Canucks, at least for the second half of the first half of the season, he's been the Canucks MVP without question. Probably the Canucks' best player. Even in the 5-goal game against the Montreal Canadiens, he was outstanding. What do you pay him?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, right now, the way it's looking in terms of his goaltending versus Jacob Markstrom, it's like they just took one out and put the other in, and they're still getting the same level of goaltending. But again, with goalies, sample size, I know Devin always chuckles at me calling Thatcher Demko's career a small sample. I'm still concerned that you go nuts on a long-term contract with a big cap hit over what is still like a full season's worth of a sample and 3 games in the bubble.
57 games.
Yeah, so still reluctant there, but boy, it's encouraging, and absolutely, Kevin, it is going to turn into probably a fairly difficult negotiation the way it's going.
Yeah, I was trying to go through and find some comparables, and the best one I can come up with right now is Andrei Vasilevsky, and he signed a 3-year bridge deal starting in 2017-18 at $3.5 million per, and that was coming off of basically a little bit less than a season's worth of over like two seasons, but he played 16 and 24 games in those 2 seasons. So I think that's probably something that is probably what they might be looking at. It's a 2 to 3 year deal. Hey, you're going to get most of the way through this flat cap with that deal, and then you're going to see where he's at, and hopefully he's follows that trajectory, because if he can follow that trajectory, the Canucks have a superstar Vezina caliber goalie in that when he needs a new contract, and that's a problem you want to have. So I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 year deal in that 3.5 to 4 range. I think that's fair for all parties.
That would be a win for the organization if they could get that kind of a deal done.
Yeah, there's also David Riddick. I know he's a bit different. He signed a 2-year, $2.75 million contract as well. And obviously not the same type of goalie, but, similar sample size of trying to figure out what you have there. So, yeah, a 3-year deal I think would be ideal at maybe 3x3 or 3x4.
Does the Jordan Binnington contract signing affect this at all?
No, because he's a UFA. And he's got a Stanley Cup, and he's got Stanley Cup. He's got he's in UFA age, so I don't think it does.
Okay, that was 6 years for Jordan Binnington was a little bit surprising to me. I'm not going to lie, but
yeah, it is to me. I just looked it up. Another one that I think is a decent look at is Matt Murray. Like he had the cups, but he still signed a 3-year deal. To 3.75 mil as his bridge deal. So I think that's what you're going to see between the two big goaltenders to watch, at least younger goaltenders to watch for this offseason with what they signed for are Demko and Carter Hart. Both are needing new contracts. So I think it's going to be something. I think we see something around that for Demko, maybe even that with Carter Hart as well.
I just discovered that Sean's light bulb board behind him there has changed from Höglander for Calder to Demko for Vezina. Is this your Kevin Bieksa where you just subtly change your set and?
I don't think Bieksa's gone past being it's subtle.
Yeah, it's not subtle with the Berkey cutout,
I don't think that you could have gotten a bigger Brian Burke thing there. That was
not to get on a tangent here, but
that was so good. That was so good though.
It's just like all three of them, McLean, Jennifer Botterill, and Kelly Rudy were like trying to be so serious through it all too, and they were like they couldn't. And
every time they cut to just Bieksa, you have to laugh because you got Berkey peering over BX's shoulder.
Yeah.
Not to mention a signed. This is a bit more serious, but a signed picture of Gordie Howe on his other side there too. So gotta love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. Well, I mean, I guess in terms of Demko, I'll say it's. I mean, if the NHL decides to end up going to Beijing, is it Carter Hart versus Thatcher Demko in the gold medal game? If it's Canada, US.
I mean, Hart's got a bit more of a clear pathway than Demko to do that. Connor Hellebuck's going to have a lot to say about that on the US team. So, but he's going to, the way Demko's playing, he's going to put his name in contention for that for sure.
Well, another name that's going to be in the way there too, I think, might be Marc-Andre Fleury for Canada.
All right, Carey Price too.
Carey
Price, good lord.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't unpopular. This may be hot take, but I don't know if it's Carey Price.
Well, I just think if you're going to have Flower in the discussion, you're reaching again another province over. No, if you're going to have Flower in the discussion, then Carey Price has to be there as well, I would think. Otherwise, we got to start looking at a sort of a next generation tier of Canadian goalies. It's an interesting one.
Binnington as well, right? Binnington's in that. He still has a bit of figuring out to do because his goals against isn't the best. But you got to think that he's in the mix as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have Fleury in my MVP candidacy. That's all I'm saying. Like as one of the four, he's not my MVP, but he is a person I did consider. So
it's a valid argument.
Yeah. We'll probably get into this as well in the mid-season stories, but Sean and I were having a discussion, and I thought would bring the private chat to the public. Taylor Hall has 2 goals this year. He's got 16 points, 2 goals, 4 assists. The Buffalo Sabres are a complete mess. There's no question about it. They're not bringing back Taylor Hall. If you're the Vancouver Canucks, you take the gamble.
Yeah, I'd like to say yes, but they've gambled so much already as it is with free agents and throwing money around that now they're kind of in a position where they have to stop doing that.
What's the price though, and what's the term? That's the issue.
Yeah.
You got to think that Hall's going to be asking for a bit more term now. He gambled on himself for 1 year, and obviously it's not paying off. So you got to think that he's wanting a longer term contract, which I don't know if the Canucks could offer. Do you take the gamble? Yeah, as long as he's not as far as any team goes, as long as he's not the key piece. I think he has a bit of a Phil Kessel syndrome of if you put him down the lineup a little bit, he can help you produce, get a bit more depth scoring on the second line or even potentially the third. But as far as the Canucks go, I personally wouldn't. Like Tyler said, you've gambled and you've given contracts to not similar players, but you have an Anton Roussel and Jay Beagle, but he hasn't shown that he is that top elite player anymore. So to me, buyers beware.
Yeah, we've talked about this before too about free agents will go certain places at a certain price, and Taylor Hall has played in the Canadian market before. Obviously, not sure that he was that jazzed about all the scrutiny and criticism that came with that when he was with the Oilers. So if he were to come to Vancouver, I think you'd have to pay a premium for that. And that just kind of puts the Canucks out of the conversation in that one, I think.
It all just comes down to term and money. If you can get him at a lower term than a 1-year deal at something less than what he could possibly produce at, I think that's something that you look at. If it's longer term, it's something you walk away from if you're the Canucks. That was my caveat, is if you could get him on a 1-year deal and you sell him on, like, because he's still he may only have 2 goals, but Buffalo's such an absolute tire fire. Like, I don't. There's not much there. That's not really his fault. So I think it's if you can get him on a 1-year deal at around $3 to $4 million. I don't know if that's realistic or not. That's something you have to look at no matter what team you are. But anything more than 1 year is where I draw the line, and if I'm the Canucks and I walk away.
He needs a playoff. Like, he needs a playoff appearance before I think anyone can really determine, and it will be interesting to see if it has to happen. There's no reason for the Sabres to keep him after the trade deadline at all.
And I have to say this is the cynical comment here, but why is it that a guy drafted first overall is 4 teams into his career at age 29 and probably going to a 5th team now? You have to ask that question, I think, when you have the discussion about, should we bring in Taylor Hall? Well, how come he hasn't stuck anywhere?
And he
really hasn't. Sorry, go Tyler.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder if there's more than meets the eye with Taylor Hall and how he fits in.
Oh, absolutely. If you think about his tenure up in Edmonton, when they had the complete divide in the room with Andrew Ferentz as their captain, it's been very public that they had the youngsters who followed Hall, and then you had the old school guys that would actually listen to their captain. That was Andrew Ferentz. So I think, Kevin, Tyler, you're bringing up a great point there, man. I think that there's some leadership qualities that aren't quite there. But once again, take a look at the teams that he got traded to. You had New Jersey, they're a bit of a tire fire. Arizona, a bit of a tire fire. And then, the complete and utter wondering what the fuck's going on in Buffalo. Apologies, Tyler's dad, for swearing, but
that's your first swear this in 50 minutes.
You did so well. You're like,
you were doing so good for 53 minutes. There was no swearing from Kevin.
Shit. So close.
Now 2 and 10 seconds.
Are you doing a Kyle Lowry now? Oh shit! I said shit.
So you just got to think about what is surrounding him, and whether or not he's able to really benefit from being in a different spot. He's tried the hockey market a heavy hockey market in Edmonton, has gone to 2 subpar hockey markets in New Jersey and Arizona, and then there's something going on in Buffalo for sure.
Jeez, Coyotes fans and Devils fans. Subpar markets.
I mean, I would put that with Arizona. I wouldn't say the Devils are necessarily the New Jersey's necessarily a subpar hockey market, but Devin did make a good point, and you look at the teams he's been on. He's basically done the tour of tire fires.
Mm-hmm. My point on that, though, Sean, is that Taylor Hall was picked first overall in the draft where it wasn't definitive whether he would be picked first. There was the whole Tyler Taylor thing with Sagan. When you're one of those tire fire teams and you bring him in, the idea is that he's supposed to have a fairly big impact on turning it around, and that hasn't happened here on multiple occasions. So I don't know. I hope for his sake, he wherever he goes next, whether that's back to Buffalo or somewhere else, that it does get figured out, because if that doesn't happen soon, what's going to happen to his career? It's just going to probably peter out at some point.
If I'm Taylor Hall, I'm looking at taking a significant discount and going to one of the top teams that is being well run, and seeing what you can do, and sign a 2-3 year deal and see what happens. because A, that means you've got your 2 to 3 year security, and B, you're getting yourself away from the tire fire. Like, I know him going to Buffalo was a big surprise, but I don't think anyone thought Buffalo was going to be this bad.
No, I mean, their goaltending, it wasn't quite there. Unfortunate that's Allmark, right when he was starting to get going, he gets injured. The defense has been okay. And then outside of that top line, I mean, you have a playoff wonder in Victor Olofsson, then obviously Eichel, but outside of that, no one's really that good. I mean, they brought in Eric Stahl to maybe bring some leadership qualities, but once again, if you look at Bill Guerin talking about changing up the mix in the room of the Minnesota, and he was the odd man out. You got to question a little bit of what Eric Stahl brings to a dressing room. So you got to think that something's got to give, especially with Rasmus Dahlin being there. Ristolainen's been there for a long time. Sam Reinhart, if you can keep him, I don't know if he wants to stay there, but he's a sneaky good player too. So, and I mean, those are pretty much the top end draft picks that they've had in the past, few years here. So I don't know. It's a question of what the hell's happening there with ownership.
I'm sorry to recommend a Bob McCown podcast again, but there was 2 this week. He had Strombo on, actually. They talked about the Hockey Night in Canada, what happened on Hockey Night in Canada when he was there. But the other one is he had a guy from a reporter from Buffalo on, and the owner, like, one of the things he said is the Pagulas are not necessarily super invested in the Sabres right now. They're super invested in the Bills at this particular point. They fired their scouting staff. They do not have a scout. They do not have an assistant general manager. They have basically pandemic salary. They kind of had to with the pandemic, but it's Kevin Adams just doing this all by himself at this particular point in time. It's really very unfortunate. And Ralph Kruger too. I mean, I think a lot of people had a lot of hopes for him. They thought he got a raw deal in Edmonton, but it hasn't worked out for him either. It's a very unfortunate mess. And I mean, Jack Eichel's out for a while, and then we haven't really talked about, like, there hasn't been much conversation about Rasmus Dahlin. I mean, when that draft happened, it was like it was all like Rasmus Dahlin, no question. I mean, Tyler, you'll remember this too. In the Canucks market, there was a lot of excitement about the Canucks hopefully getting Rasmus Dahlin, and I think it's very safe to say at a particular point in time, now that there's Quinn Hughes here, I think that feels a lot like, wow. I don't know if that's Rasmus Dahlin or that's the organization. But not much of conversation about him at all.
It's just a discouraging situation all around for fans, players, everybody associated with the Sabres right now.
Yeah,
that's nothing on Dahlin. Like, he's still playing really well. Like, I know points aren't everything with defensemen, but he still put up 2 40-point seasons in his first 2 seasons in the NHL. So Rasmus Dahlin is still one hell of a young defenseman. Unfortunately, they just, again, hockey's a team sport, and if you don't have the right pieces around you, even if you've got a decent core, you're gonna struggle, as Canucks fans know too well.
I feel bad for that fan base, because that's a really passionate fan base. I mean, it's right near Toronto. I know that there'll be a lot of Leaf fans there, but that's a very passionate Buffalo Sabre fan base too. So it's very unfortunate. So let's kind of just quickly go through here. Let's stick on this. We'll have the media stuff after, but the McDraisatl is back together. They feasted. They had a hot dog with mustard, ketchup, relish, and whatever other fixings that you want on your hot dog. And then they ate a hamburger. They had a lot of delicious food against the Ottawa Senators. They scored 16 points in 3 games against the Senators. And it really looks like at this particular point, this might be a pair that they keep together, Tyler.
And I have to question why. Like last year, prior to the season being interrupted, they had gone most of the year with them on separate lines, and they were on track to be a playoff team. They went into the bubble as the number 5 seed. Then this season, they were playing on separate lines, and obviously, Jesse Puljujarvi coming in has been a big help to sort of add to the depth of their top 6 in Edmonton. And they were on a good run prior to the 3 games at home versus Toronto. I mean, they won both in Vancouver. They won a couple against Calgary, and then going back further, they were 1-1 against Winnipeg, and a bunch of wins prior to that. So I just find the timing interesting that to decide to make that move and put them back together against Ottawa. I mean, you had 3 losses against Toronto. Okay, I mean, Toronto's a good team. But, was it because the 2 guys go quiet, they're not getting the points, and that's something that sells with the fans, and so now they got to make that change? Like, I get it from their point of view. There is no room in a professional sports league to worry about how it looks to the other team. I mean, if you're Dave Tippett, your job is to, if you need to shake it up because that means you're going to win more games and that's better for the team's success, then, you go that route. And, if you blow out Ottawa, then, too bad for Ottawa, be better. But I just, and Mark Spector's pointed this out on sportsnet.ca as well. I just find the timing interesting. I frankly, to be honest, I think it's kind of cheap that they would go this route against Ottawa. They feel like it's an experiment that they can get away with against Ottawa. And then they stuck with the 2 playing together last night against Vancouver, and they lost. They did manage 1 power play goal with Draisaitl, but, if you can contain the 1 line, it's pretty tough for the Oilers to win. So now the question is, will they keep them together against the Flames, or are they going to go back to having them on separate lines? I guess we'll find out soon enough, but I don't know. Are the Oilers trying to embarrass the Senators? No, but I mean, I'd have a little more respect for the move if they did it against stronger competition, and that. So I don't know. That was interesting, and we've seen this over successive coaches and a couple of general managers now as well, where as soon as those guys go quiet, there's some message from above, it seems like, to put them together so they can start padding the stats again. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. Now Yamamoto's fit really well with them, but will this happen now that they've actually lost a game like that?
You got to think that they will probably go back to it just to see if they can have a bounce back game against Calgary. So I'm with Tyler on this. I don't see the benefit of doing that with just having a 1-line team. And no offense to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but you got to figure out, okay, well, what's going to benefit the lines as a whole instead of just 1 line. Once again, it also comes down to the lack of depth, right? And that's very glaring when you have only that top line going. And it doesn't make sense to me either.
We've spent a lot of time last few episodes here talking about the Canucks when Petey comes back going to a 3 center setup with Horvat, Pettersson, and Miller, and trying to build that depth while the Oilers go the absolute opposite way, load it all up with a big huge first line, and then you've got, I would say it's an okay second line with Nugent Hopkins, Ennis, and Puljujarvi, and then after that it just falls right off. So for me, I think it makes so much more sense and makes the Oilers so much better if you have them both driving their own line and allowing them so that you aren't relying on your 3rd and 4th lines to just somehow find a way to surprise the other team and score when they're out there. So I honestly think this is something that they're going to go to and away from at different times, just depending on feeling. I think they will go back to having them both on 2 separate lines for the majority of the season, but I think they will not be afraid to go to this nuclear bomb approach and have them all have everyone on all their top 3 offensive players on one line.
But when if you get into the playoffs, and I mean, there's a good chance that they'll get into the playoffs, and you're facing a Winnipeg or Toronto, putting a McDavid and Draisaitl together, I would think is actually an advantage for Winnipeg. Wouldn't it be an advantage for Winnipeg in the sense that you can roll your 4 lines and you don't have to necessarily match up against a McDavid and Draisaitl. You just put one line against them.
Yeah.
If they score, great, but you're not going to get a heck of a lot of production from anywhere else. And I think that the other part about that, I think I agree with Devin, is the winger depth on that and that team right now is really lacking. I mean, Kyle Turris has not worked out. James Neal was scratched again. Patrick Russell played some time with McDavid and Draisaitl. PRV has been good, but I don't think has been consistent. And Yamamoto is good, but it's I don't know, that forward depth on the Oilers is something that I would be concerned about for sure.
Yeah, and you're right there, Kev, in terms of if they load everyone up on one line, makes it much easier to either match up or roll all 4 lines. Like if you're Winnipeg or Montreal or Toronto, depending on who they end up playing.
Yeah.
But based off of who's in the playoffs right now. But I think it's, like I said, I think it's something that they're going to go to. They're going to play a little bit like this, and they're going to go back to splitting them up, because I think having that option of both of them makes the Oilers a little bit more dangerous than just having them on one line or just having them on 2 lines.
And even the Canucks, Sean, like, I was curious after the game Friday night against Ottawa. Okay, they won big again. Are they going to stick with this against Vancouver? I was like, I hope they do, because that probably gives them a better chance of being able to contain those guys. The previous visit to Vancouver for the Oilers, I mean, it was, I believe, a 2-game sweep, and it was just like this one wave after another with the guys on separate lines, and the Canucks just couldn't withstand it. And last night was a different story. Yeah, back to back, so that's a factor too. But if you're the opposition to the Oilers and you're playing at home, and you can negotiate those matchups a little better, that please put them together.
If I was Dave Tippett, I would have them on separate lines to start the game, and then just sporadically put them together just to switch up the lines and create some sort of confusion for the other coach, and go back to it and not have it set, because I feel like that's kind of more of a better way to approach game planning against that top line, right?
Yeah, you can get creative with that. Like, say after the final TV timeout of the period, throw them together to finish the period, that kind of thing. I mean, we've seen Sheldon Keefe get creative like that with his forwards in Toronto as well. When he wants to load them up, he does that strategically as well. But to set out from the start that they're going to load up on one line, I mean, you're all in on that. If they have a quiet night, you're not going to win.
I'm not sure I'm asking this question properly, so if I ask it and it feels silly, just bear with me. But it feels to me sometimes that the focus on Connor McDavid, and I'm not saying he's not a great player, but it seems, if it makes any sense, to be focused so much on his point production. And not so much, like, we go back to what Darryl Sutter said about the Flames, is we're not a star-laden team, but we have 4 solid centers that are doing things. And I'm not trying to criticize Connor McDavid, but I almost think, like, it's so much focus on his offensive production and will he get 100 points and his individual stats, that it's not the Oiler team game, that it's just that I feel is it's not the focus. It feels like it's more like McDavid and Draisaitl need their points and everything else will be down.
Well, the question is does that influence, management and coaching decisions? It's kind of hard to draw the line between the two, but certainly, Kevin, the narrative around the team is that. I don't think you can deny that. I mean, I'm not an Oilers fan. I don't live in Edmonton. It's hard to truly know this, but I do think that there's definitely value in the fan base on their production, sometimes even over the wins and losses.
Yeah. Like go ahead, Devin.
Well, it's just that you got to keep McDavid happy, right? Otherwise, he will ask for a trade. I truly believe that. And the whole notion that look at his highlight goals. It's him going from one end to the other, deking through everybody, because that's what he does best. And outside of that, I don't know about his 3-zone play. His defensive zone, neutral zone, and offensive zone speaks for itself. But more so as far as the team game goes, I think you're onto something there. I also think that you hate Connor McDavid because you were questioning him as a captain there, Kevin. We've had that conversation. You want to
use your right hand for that reach again that you did before?
Well, Kevin's reaching again.
No, I think you're onto something there for sure. To go back to Leafland for a second here, Austin Matthews has really solidified himself as a good defensive player and playing the right way, and knowing that if you take care of things in your defensive zone, you're skilled enough to have a good offensive output when it really comes down to it. And preaching that defensive zone play, I think, is really beneficial, especially for the star players. So I totally agree with you in the sense that it just seems like they're just looking for the points, and whatever happens. And double-edged sword is that, okay, if they don't get their points, then who the hell's scoring on that team?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even like sometimes in the Oilers broadcast, and I mean, I know that a lot of people like Jack Michaels, but when I watch Oilers broadcast, when they lose, it's really a focus on how many points Connor McDavid got. It's almost like the result is who cares? Connor McDavid scored. That's what matters here. And it's really weird, and maybe. And I totally get it that this is a guy you don't want to trade. Of course, please, don't get me wrong, but it feels like he has a big grip on this organization, like to the point like we're going to be doing this the McDavid way or no way at all. It's LeBron-esque.
Well,
no, he's the best player on the ice. Like, you watch him play, and there's so many times I watch McDavid play and wonder why he isn't scoring more. Like, he's that skilled. So you have to kind of try and separate that out as much as possible, but you still have to make sure that you're supporting the best player on the ice as much as possible. So I think it's a tough balancing act to handle, but I don't think you should be absolutely ripping into the Oilers management for trying to make sure that Connor McDavid is happy and to make sure that he's still part of your organization.
Let me counteract with what Barry Trotz did with Alex Ovechkin. A guy that, no question, best goal scorer that will ever play this game, but he made sure Ovechkin changed his game, and it was not so much about points, but it was about the team, and he won a Stanley Cup. Sidney Crosby was not about points, it was about the team, and he won the Stanley Cup. That is my point, is I'm, at some point here, this has to move from an individual to a team game in order to win a Stanley Cup. And I'm not convinced that the Oilers are there.
But the other thing
I just wanted to say, Sean, with Ovechkin, I think the biggest thing that happened there was not so much Trotz, but Ovechkin maturing to the point where he got into that mindset. And, that may come down the line with McDavid. Go ahead, Sean.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's on the player more than anything else to make that to mature to a point where they understand that. Like, you look at some of the best players on those I say there's like 3 really good teams in the past 20 years that you would get close to dynasty, close to using dynasty, and that's Boston, Chicago, and LA. Kopitar, Bergeron, and Taves. All detail-oriented, defense-first centers. I've gone through this, and I think if you look at throughout the history, like 20, 25, 30 years of Stanley Cup winners, it's for the most part, those winners, those Stanley Cup teams have Selke-level centers leading the teams, not Hart Trophy winning centers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely is, but it's on the players more than anything else to take that step. Ovechkin was receptive and made sure and wanted to win and wanted to do whatever he could to win and listen to Trotz because of that. And that was a conscious effort and decision by Alex Ovechkin more than it was coaching from Barry Trotz. And for the Oilers to take the next step and the Leafs to take the next step, their top players need to make those conscious decisions that they need to be better defensively. And the Leafs players have started to do that. There's still a little bit of ways to go with them, but they're on the right track. And I think what you're saying, Kevin, is correct in the fact that the Oilers are not.
With Ovechkin, I think one of the things, too, is the narrative around him eventually became solely focused on he can't get it done in the playoffs, right? Prior to their Stanley Cup win, they never got past the second round. So it became all about that, and then Ovechkin, focused in on the wins and losses. Right now, the narrative, as you've pointed out, Kevin, around the Oilers is about things other than the winning. And, we'll see if that changes. We'll see, is that coming from ownership? We can speculate for a long time on that. I think I differ a little bit from Devin. I think that there is the idea that McDavid would want out at some point, I think, is being overblown a little bit. It's a situation that's really, caters to him. He's the captain of the team. He's got a good contract, obviously. He's in a Canadian market where he has high profile to support his endorsement deals. I'm not seeing clear indications that McDavid is going to want out anytime soon. But certainly when you are of his caliber and you are the captain of the team and you are making that kind of money, yeah, he's going to have some amount of grip on what the organization does, no question.
To clarify, I don't think he's going to ask out like next year, but I'm saying, like, if he's not seeing the progress from upper management to make this team better and make him surround him with the proper players, then why the hell would you stay there? Right. Yeah. And it's just like in any type of business, if your work is not setting you up for success, then it's redundant. It's pointless. And especially when you're arguably the best player on this planet, then, you have that drive to wanting to win, and you want to see that progress. And who knows if it's Darryl, like I just see another owner up there middling a little bit and wanting certain things to happen. And if it was down to Darryl Cates telling the GM, going down to the coach that he wants to see McDavid and Draisaitl together because that's the way that it works, then that's the way that it works. Who's paying who's signing your paychecks.
Yeah.
5 more years left on the deal for McDavid. To Devin's point, if they haven't made any progress, does this turn into a John Tavares type situation where he heads elsewhere, feeling like I did my part? So far, it's been one playoff appearance. Probably going to be a few more at least. But does it turn into that? Because boy, if it does go that route and he ends up elsewhere in free agency, yikes. That might be the ugliest situation you ever see in a Canadian market.
Yeah, might be. Let's go through what other. We're at the midseason part here. Hard to believe we've went this far. What are some of the storylines that have caught your eye? We'll start with Sean.
Minnesota for sure. There's a lot of people who did not even have Minnesota in the playoff race, let alone challenging for the division. And they found a gear, and they found an identity with this team that has been able to allow them to push the teams of Vegas and St. Louis to try and be competing for a division within that division. And then along with that, it's Kirill Kaprizov. Like he's absolutely running away with the Calder Trophy debate. There's not a debate. It's going to be him that's going to win that trophy. And yeah, that's the big one for me is Minnesota and Kirill Kaprizov, just how good they are, and it's good for another. Speaking of a fan base who is thirsty and wants to see some success from their team and have been toiling in mediocrity for basically ever since they came into the league. So it's you got to feel good for those fans.
For me, coming
Keep
into
the jerseys.
Yes. Well, yeah, the
Keep
jerseys.
those jerseys.
Yeah, they're probably. Well, I still think the LA Kings reverse retro is slightly ahead of the Minnesota reverse retro, but those are some nice uniforms indeed. For me, the fact that you have the Florida Panthers at the same point total as the Tampa Bay Lightning at this moment as we record today is not something that was on my radar or in the crystal ball at all before the season started. It's about time with the Panthers, frankly. I mean, they have some good players, and they're finally getting it together there, and good for them. Hopefully when the pandemic's behind us, to get the fans back in that building.
They have a goaltending juggernaut right now.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky, Drieger, Spencer Knight, and from Team Canada junior goalie. Forgetting his name right now.
Devin
Levi.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, goalies are voodoo and bullshit, so you don't know exactly what you're going to get until they actually make it. Spencer Knight's is as good a prospect as you're going to get. Devin Levi has come out of nowhere. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable at this point. Again, going back to what Tyler's talked about in terms of sample size with goalies. He was playing like second-tier junior last year, and now he's made the jump to NCAA and got the spotlight on him at the World Juniors. So, but Bobrovsky and Drieger up in the NHL has been fantastic for them.
Sorry, Devin, I interrupted you.
Yeah, how dare you? For me, one of the biggest surprises is Chicago. The appearance and the coming onto the scene is their goalie Lehkonen. He's been phenomenal, and without him in the net there, they would not be where they are. Along with you have Kane up there, who just hit 1,000 games. Chicago has just been a wonder. Right now they're sitting fourth in the Central Division with Columbus behind them by 5 points. And you would have thought that Columbus would have been up there too. But Chicago has been without Taves, without Kirby Dach, has been very just a wonder. Once again coming on the scene, Pius Suter, he's been amazing. And you lose Seabrook. Yeah, he's been on the downward spiral for a while. But yeah, it blows my mind that they're doing so well. And once again they have Dylan Strome out as well. So that's been my surprise.
To me, the New York Islanders without Anders Lee. They are 9-0-1. They've won 8 in a row. They have not lost a regulation game at home. They have feasted on the Buffalo Sabres, but they are also unbeaten against the Boston Bruins. Barry Trotz has done it again. The Islanders are the best team in the best division right now, in my opinion. I think that they're a great story. And I think that just the fact that at least the North, yes, we had a little bit of a bump, but the North Division did not have a single postponement or cancellation of any games due to COVID. I think that should be applauded.
We had one game, Edmonton at Montreal, pushed back an hour, I think, to confirm a test, but that was it.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
In terms of the Islanders, Kev, like I had them right in the battling it out. They're a step above where I thought they'd be, but knowing who they have Varlamov, and they've got Sorokin and net. They've got Noah Dobson stepping up huge for them this year. Ryan Pulak's been amazing for them. They were able to trade away Devin Taves and still not lose a beat that way. And then you've got one of the best pure skaters in the NHL in Matt Barzal up front. So losing Anders Lee sucks and hurts them, but they still have the depth with up front with Brock Nelson, Barzal, Boisville, and Eberle as well. Like they've got some good depth on that team, and when you've got a good well-rounded team being coached well, you can't count them out, and you can't underestimate them, and I think they deserve all the credit in the world for being at the top of that division. And it's going to be. I really, really hope that they can find a way to stay there for the rest of the season.
You've got Washington 8-1-1, winning 4 in a row. Pittsburgh 7-3, winning 5 in a row. That's a fun division.
That is a fun division, and just to clarify, it's Bouvillier, Sean. I didn't realize who you're talking about until I looked at the name. So,
Boisville.
Oh no,
man.
Lots of good stories, and we'll be focusing a little bit more down south during the second half, and kind of we want to get some of those teams some spotlight as well. There's some interesting stories there, but. To move to the media landscape, because I like going there. Some big news from the TSN 1040 personalities. Matt Sakaris and Blake Price teased it, and revealed their podcast. So they're back on the air once a week with a podcast, at least once a week, is my understanding.
They may go daily, from what I've read and looked into. They're going to see how it goes, and then right now I think going 1 or 2 times a week. But I think they definitely want to get back doing something daily.
Yeah. And as well as Donnie and Dollywall will be on Czech TV. That looks like that will be daily, 10 to 11 in the old Donnie and the Moj time slot. Unknown what it looks like Moj is going to be sticking with the Lions, which the appearance is going to be, might be CKNW. We don't know that for sure, but that looks like he's going to be doing play-by-play. But Donnie and Dollywall on the air, that will be entertaining. Rick Dollywall has been on our show. Friend of the show, Rick Dollywall.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, but that will be very entertaining.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see all 4 of those guys back on the horse. Hopefully we see some more of them follow suit. Halford and Bruff, I think need to get back out there. I need them back. I one thing I've noticed is I don't listen to nearly as much sports radio just because I'm still trying to suss out what I want to listen to and who fits the style that I like. And Halford and Bruff fit that style because they don't take themselves too seriously. They'll laugh at each other. They'll trade barbs, but they can still be serious as well. And I think it's such a hard balance to have. And hopefully that they'll be back soon as well. And
Megan, the other one I wanted to just quickly speak about was Megan Mickelson. Made her Oilers debut on Friday night. I know that they've been trying a few people, but I'm not sure if anyone saw it, but I think they found a permanent person there. I thought she was really strong.
I was surprised it took that long for Sportsnet to find a way to get her on. If anybody has watched The Amazing Race Canada in the past, they will remember her and Natalie Spooner were a team, I think, in the second season, and Natalie's done quite a bit of analyst type stuff here and there. So I wondered, well, when are they going to get Megan Mickelson on? And indeed, they've given her a shot. So I did not see it myself, but knowing her and what I've seen from her in the past, I'm sure it was very good.
Yeah, it seems Sportsnet is trying out a bunch of the Canadian women's team players on as analysts, and some are working out really well. Jen Botterill's been a great add to the national broadcast as well as some of the regional ones. Vancouver brought on Danielle Dubé earlier this past week to talk a little bit there. I like it. I think it's a great thing. I was wondering. I didn't know how old Megan Mickelson was. She might be on the looking at what she's doing next, because I really want to make sure that I really hope we start seeing some growth and some development of the PWHA or PWPHA and the NWHL, trying to find a way to make that work so that we can have a full blown women's league that doesn't have that asterisk of not necessarily having the best players playing for them, and we can start promoting that, because we really need to see that part of hockey grow, and this will help that.
She's 35.
Yeah, I looked that up. So she is looking at. She's probably looking at as potential post playing career option, and especially if you want to be able to have someone to talk about those games that hopefully come going forwards, like they getting Botterill, getting Mickelson, getting Spooner, and all those all those players a chance to try out and get used to talking on the mic and talking, being an analyst will really help them create a polished product down the road.
Tyler, we didn't get I agree with you, Sean, for sure. And I could see Leah Hextall, Carolyn Cameron, a few other people get involved in that for sure. Tyler, we didn't get your take. Now that the NHL and ESPN deal is done, what were your thoughts?
I'm amazed that they're going to get a piece of the Stanley Cup final as well. So it looks like it will alternate between ABC/ESPN and whatever the other partner is over the next 7 to 8 years. The ESPN deal 7 years, so they'll have the Cup final next season, and then every second year, I'm assuming, after that. My biggest thing is, can they get Gary Thorne to come back? He is interested. He is 72, however. He has done some hockey in recent years. He filled in for Bob Miller on the Kings broadcast for a handful of games 2 or 3 seasons ago, I think. And I just think he's just, back in the day was one of the great American hockey voices, if not the best American hockey voice. I have a lot of respect for Doc Emmerich as well. They got to find a way to get him back in the fold, even if he's not the lead play-by-play guy. Boy, it'd be great to hear Gary Thorne call some hockey games again. For the league, it's huge. Obviously, it's a home run to get back on ESPN for a 7-year term, and get it's just in terms of being on the sports fan radar in the U.S. You have to be on ESPN, or you're just not on the same tier as the other sports.
And Stephen A. Smith was going to talk hockey.
Amazing, yeah.
Oh, just wait till we get Stephen A. Smith and Kevin Bieksa in the same studio talking hockey.
Oh, that'll be
because ESPN, ABC is snapping up Bieksa. Like he lives in Anaheim, so it's like that's where they're based out of. There's no better fit for ESPN to bring in someone who can engage the fans in intermissions and everything, and entertain them than Kevin Bieksa.
Would be a massive loss for CBC.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a combination. He'll do a combination. I think he'll still stick with a hockey night on Saturdays, but I think he'll do a combination of both. Because if I'm Sportsnet, I am making sure he's on Saturday nights at the very least going forwards for a long time.
He's the most important piece of their studio programming, even more so than McLean and David Amber at this point, as far as I'm concerned. He's the star there. They got to find a way to keep him.
Yep, I totally agree. Sean, last question to you from the James Cutney. I would like to hear Sean's take on the Canucks win.
Just serve up a softball here.
Oh man, it's a dirty, greasy win, but you need those wins every once in a while. Demko stood on his head. They need to find a way to not rely on Demko going forwards, but to find a way to win. What are we at now? 3 out of 4 without Pettersson in the lineup has been fantastic, and we're starting to see some of the some players step up that we didn't think that they would, with Virtanen being a key part of that Horvat line, and even Gaudette getting a goal in this stretch as well. So it's a nice positive step for the Canucks. They've got a long way to go to be able to do something this year, but if they can find a way to keep scraping and clawing wins out, then there might be some silver lining, some hope at the end of this dark tunnel.
They're only 3 points out of the playoffs. I know that the Canadians have 4 games in hand, but they're 3-2 in their they're 500 in the last 10. So really, at this point, let's assume at this point that the 4 games in hand, they get 4 points. So the Canucks are 6 points out. Realistically, it's not.
In their last 7 games, they've won 5, and that seems to be easily forgotten. Like on Wednesday night, they lose and they played dreadful, and it's back to all the negative thoughts about the team. Well, I mean, 5 out of 7 is like a 714 winning percentage. Now they're not going to keep that up, but if they can keep something, in the 650 range for winning percentage, they're in the race.
And yeah,
so the question is, can they find another level against some of these other teams haven't played recently? Like when they go into Edmonton, how are they going to do against the Oilers? When they go into Toronto, how are they going to do against the Leafs? That was a disaster the last time the Canucks were in Toronto. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered there. But if they can stay somewhere close to a 600 to 700 winning percentage, they're going to stay in that race.
Yeah, that's what they need to do going forward. So they still have to find a way to hop over the Flames, who are on the Darryl Sutter new coach bump. So that'll be tough, but there's still some hope in there and all that. But it's still a long. It's still the odds are quite long on at this point. But if they can find a way to ride these wins and when Petey comes back, start putting together some more dominant wins, that's when you're going to start to. You'll see people like me start to change our tones in terms of how we feel about their chances, their realistic chances of finding a way into the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess my point is it's not all doom and gloom. If you just win your games, just win the next game Monday against Ottawa, like the Flames, win your next game against Edmonton, and just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This week coming up is huge for the Canucks. They've got a couple of games against Ottawa. Hopefully they can find a way to they don't have to destroy them like they did last time, but as long as you get the 2 points, that's huge. And then they're back against Montreal, and hopefully by the time they're back against Montreal, Pettersson's back, and they can start building some more wins and find a way to scrape and claw their way back into this realistically back into this fight.
Yep. So we will see that. Let's end it there. We'll be back on, it looks like Thursday is midweek intermission, as the Flames and the Canucks are playing Monday and Wednesday. So it looks like Thursday. What?
Devin has something to say.
Yes. So usually ask, is this the end of, anybody else have anything?
Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yes, I do. I just want to give props to Sean Monahan getting his 200th goal of his career. And before, surprisingly enough, Nathan MacKinnon did. That was a mind-boggling stat for me, that Nathan MacKinnon doesn't have as many goals as Sean Monahan. So props to Sean.
Yeah, one of the top goal scorer in that draft. That's fascinating. That's something I don't think a lot of people realize. And
I didn't know that. Yeah.
He's been such a negative microscope the last couple of years here. I think we forget the production of what Sean Monahan is, and I think that, and I also think we underestimated what Darryl Sutter would do with him. What's happened there? I think that's going to be very fascinating. Anything else before I say goodbye? I'm sorry.
Props to Tyler's hair for holding up this entire podcast.
Good point. Props to Tyler's hair.
I just want to throw out congratulations to Steven and Joe at the Big and Duke. This weekend they are celebrating their 6th anniversary for their downtown location and 9th anniversary for their 12th location. That was where we were lucky enough to record our pubcast couple Decembers ago. And it's we've met some good friends there who we've had on our podcast, the Oilers YYC crew. They're awesome guys. In our intro, the drunken pub argument was arguing about Cam Talbot and his whether or not he was a top Canadian goaltender, and that was the first night Chris and I met those guys, and they've become good friends and repeat guests on our podcast here. So I just want to say thanks to Steven and Joe for being so hospitable hospitable to us throughout the years, and actually supporting this podcast and listening every once in a while. So thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Joe.
Can't wait to get back there myself.
One of the best wings in the city.
Yes.
It looks like traveling may be allowed very soon. Touching on wood, things are appearing to move in a positive direction. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So and shout out to all of you for listening. Thank you so much. And how do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canucks 03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at Tnoble, Tnoble. I'm
GordHowe09 on Twitter.
Schneids is SCHNEIDZ. And next time he's on, we are going to talk about songs with Schneids. We'll have that's the segment. It's going to be songs with Schneids. That's what I'm teasing. KEVOLE podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, where you can like and subscribe there. YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. Subscribe there. Tell all your friends. Subscribe on audio. Thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.